Is there an art that has everything? Is there an art that ticks all the boxes, covers all the bases? Or do you need to be cross-training? And if you do need to be cross-training, can you do too much? Can you overdo it? Ever since the UFC came out, people have realized that cross-training is probably necessary. No single art is really doing a great job of handling everything. Gracie's got into the UFC, they brought grappling, ground game in a big way. Arguably, maybe they kind of stacked it that way on purpose, but they needed to show off their art, and I get that. But what they have done is they've shown us that Jiu-Jitsu has a legitimate place, and that all these other arts really struggle to handle it, to deal with the way the Gracies fought. Now we fast forward and we realize that the Thai have the best kicks and the best clinches, that you have boxers that are just laying people out. You got all your grappling, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, judo, right? Now you got all your throwing. It's unfortunate that when it comes to the UFC, karate is not one of the main ones, but it's at least the art that I love, so I'm definitely keeping it on this list. Plus you have all your Chinese styles, you have Indonesian styles, Filipino styles, all these different ways of approaching the martial arts. So if you live somewhere where a lot of that is available, how do you know which ones to do and whether or not you're doing too much? I got asked this question by your friendly Kung Fu bus driver, Randall Davis, over at the Kung Fu Conversations podcast. He said, hey, I know that you cross-train different arts that are different from each other. He said, I cross-train, but I cross-train mostly Chinese arts that are really similar to each other. But I wanted to ask you, do you think that you can cross-train too much, that you can overdo it? And, well, here we go. Let's make a video about it. Yes, I think it's entirely possible to cross-train too much, that you can overdo it, for sure, 100%, for one very specific reason. But I'll jump to that maybe a little bit later on, because there's some other things that I want to talk about first. First, let's highlight this idea that Randall brought up when he talked about how he cross-trains with very similar arts. Maybe not similar, but arts from the same lineage, all Chinese arts, so they have overlapping parts to them that the principles and things tie in and really kind of go together in a lot of ways, but they approach things from a different way. They add in different principles, different concepts, different methodologies, but they're very similar, so they make cross-training them maybe easier. I'm going to have to ask him, or maybe he'll drop in the comments to share with you, and if you train this way, maybe you can as well. If you train arts that are very similar to each other, do they conflict not as much as you might think, or do they conflict more? It's entirely possible that you can have things be so similar that you actually struggle to split them apart, and that can create issues learning each one, or at least keeping them separate. I think it's also really important to think about the fact that when you cross-train, what are you doing it for? Are you doing it because you want to explore different martial arts, or are you doing it because you want to be the best fighter, the best you, the best whatever? What is it that you're trying to do? Are your goals to get in the cage and be able to be well-rounded and be able to take on whatever you take on, or you just really want to explore some different ideas and have a good, solid understanding from like a self-defense perspective? Or are you just interested and you're chasing them because of that interest? Well, those things are really going to define what you get out of it and how much is too much. If you're chasing it the way I do, where I have 3 arts in my life that I am very passionate about, that I study and want to continue to pass on to other people, which means that when I train, I need to be able to retain and isolate different concepts and principles and theories, different methodologies, different things like that, so that I can spread them out and give them to people appropriately, and not just jumble it together and lose the essence of each art by trying to just give all of everything. Instead, I need to keep them separate. Meanwhile, I benefit from that. My ability to move, to strike, to grapple, to throw, to any of these things, it definitely benefits from having that cross-training. So it goes without saying that you can definitely cross-train in things that are unlike. You can also look at the way that things like the military or law enforcement need to cross-train. They're filling out holes that they have specifically to handle those kinds of gaps in their training. When they start to fill that in, they really need those fundamental pieces, and maybe pursuing the whole art in all of its pieces is unnecessary. Instead, give me the fundamentals and let me drill those like crazy of the things that I specifically need that are gaps in my other training, and then I'll use all of these trainings together in order to make one thing. That's very different than pursuing each fully and putting them together. I think that it's really common to try to fill out your cross-training by things that fill in the gaps of your other training. I like to look for the ways things overlap because they give you bridges to each other. So for example, the karate that I do is very grappling heavy, so moving into the jiu-jitsu is very natural. You have a bridge from the striking to the grappling to the ground that works really, really well. But not every karate style is going to be like that, and not every jiu-jitsu style is going to spend a lot of time on the stand-up game. So when you have jiu-jitsu that's exclusively ground, maybe your school doesn't really deal with the stand-up hardly at all, other than maybe a few takedowns, and then you've got a karate school that does zero grappling, you're always long range, and you're always working like that, then that middle space is going to be really difficult to approach. So you've got to find a way to do that. But instead, it might just be that those two things aren't the best fit, and you might need to find something or some things that fit and overlap better. I think that helps if you don't want to overdo it and you don't want to get to a spot where you just can't really make it all work and you're just scrambling and fumbling to try to put it together. But let's talk about the big one. This is the thing that I think is the most important when you're looking at this, which is how much time do you have? How much time do you have to be as proficient as you want to be? How much time do you have in your life? You know, we're all at different stages of our life, so that's an important consideration as well. How much time do you have that you can take away from other things like work or family or other passions that you have? And how much time can you dedicate to each thing? If you do 7 different things, then being able to do 7 things becomes really difficult to do with any amount of significant focus. What you want to be good at needs and deserves your time. If you want to be good at karate, you got to spend time in karate. If you want to be good at jiu-jitsu, you got to spend time in jiu-jitsu. If you want to be good at anything, you got to spend time in that thing. You can easily overdo it if you're constantly going, okay, well, I train an hour per art per day of the week. That is so much, and you'll burn out. I guarantee it. I wish I could tell you it'd be different. If you have that kind of time in your schedule, that you could totally go for it and be a great idea, but you will absolutely burn out. Your body will give out because you're not giving it the recovery and the healing time that it needs. You can't just chase everything and expect to be able to keep up. And then, of course, right on top of that is how well do these things go together? How much time are you spending retracing your steps in one of your arts because of things you're learning in another art? If they don't overlap well, they don't mesh well, and you can't keep their principles separate in a way that allows you to train them without having to unlearn or relearn things constantly, then you're going to struggle to get far in any of them, or at least you're going to have 1 or 2 that fall back. You've got to be able to pursue them and make progress. If you're pursuing them and constantly just redoing the same progress you've already made because you keep building other habits that don't work, then that's not really how it's going to go. It's really going to make you struggle. Another super important area to make an assessment is how the tactics and strategies of that art interplay with the tactics and strategies of the other art. If you are doing arts that tactically do very different things, then how much benefit are you actually getting? You need to be able to see how those strategies play with each other and how you can implement them together. Lastly, you got to make sure that you have a platform that allows you to exercise the use of them. If you don't have the ability to see how these things work together, then how beneficial is it really in order to do all of this training? So if you're going to cross-train, you've got to cross-train in a way that allows you to explore the things that you're doing and see how they come together. I fully believe that you can cross-train, and you can cross-train in a handful of things very well and be able to take good advantage of that, pursue them, and really get a lot of enjoyment out of them and be able to be passionate about that and not really struggle too much. But I definitely think there's a line where you can overdo it. Let me know in the comments how it goes for you if you are cross-training, and I hope that you are. Let me know how it goes and what your experiences are and how this stuff has gone for you. If you've got advice, share that too, because I think there are people who are trying to figure this out who need some sort of guidance, and if you're doing it, if you've got experience, you're the right person. You should share that. And make sure that you're happy with it. Maybe you really like the sporting side of things and the character building thing is really boring to you and that's really struggles for you. So then maybe arts that do that aren't really your choice. that's not really what you want. Maybe you're very into the character building and you like more traditional martial arts, then you train a lot of sport arts or a lot of more military style systems, and they're too aggressive and they hit you in a different way at a personal philosophical level. You've got to have and be able to achieve that balance in everything that you choose. So choose things that don't create turmoil inside of you. No matter whether you cross-train or don't, and you have strong feelings or just are very neutral, I think it's important that we have these discussions and we look at this kind of stuff. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. I'll catch you next time.